When the Buddha first taught the foundations of mindfulness, he wasn't necessarily teaching something that wasn't already around. He just inverted the system from top down to bottom up. He said, start with the body. It begins with mindfulness of the body, then mindfulness of the feelings of the body, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, then mindfulness of thought, and then mindfulness of the dhammas, the interpretations of reality. But really, he said, start here, start with the body, that thing that's always in the present moment. This is why in yoga and meditation, we focus so much on the breath and the body. They are in the present moment 100% of the time, where our minds are only here about 53% of the time. And why was it body first? Well, because thought actually happens really late in the process of our decision making. In fact, there's a metaphor used by neuroscientists that the thinking mind is like a monkey riding on the back of an elephant. The monkey might think it's calling the shots, but ultimately the elephant, the unconscious and nonverbal mind, is going to go where it wants to go. And this is well explained from Josh Korda in his book, Unsubscribe. He says, the ongoing stream of internal commentary, views, opinions, and rationalizations create the illusion that our thoughts are creating, producing, authoring, and controlling all of our actions. As the Buddha noted, and which has been subsequently documented by neurologists, thought is very, very late in the timeline of neural events. Well before we think about how to speak or act, the faster circuits in the brain have significantly influenced our behaviors. Inner thought doesn't choose how we act so much as it narrates the events, asserting a false sense of control. In an oft-employed analogy by neuroscientists, thought is like a monkey riding on the head of an elephant, which represents all the unconscious, implicit processes of the brain. The monkey frantically shouts at the elephant, believing it's controlling the latter's movements, but the elephant, the unconscious mind, is really calling the shots. The monkey simply tells a story, much like our inner chatter. This is why it's so difficult to change core behaviors, such as trying to talk oneself down from a panic attack or trying to be more confident in social settings, only to once again shut down. Thoughts fail to control addictions, ingrained habits, reactions, emotional outbursts, anxiety-based procrastination, and so on, because they arrive last in the causal chain of influences. This is why the Buddha cleverly placed awareness of our interpretation of the world last in the foundations of mindfulness. His system inverts how we generally relate to our experience. We try to think and define and explain our way through life, but our interpretations of the world are imprecise and often ineffectual. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that the mind is useless in making decisions. It's just that at a snap, our body reacts first, and we can use the mind once again as a servant and not the master. So, Josh Korda gives an example of this when deciding whether or not to take a teaching opportunity that he's unsure about. And he shows us this bottom-up system, being more aware of the body as opposed to getting lost in the mind. And again, he writes, as I read an email containing the offer to teach, I stay present with the experience and turn my attention to how I'm breathing, whether the breaths are long or short, long indicating ease, shallow indicating agitation. I note the areas where gut feelings express core reactions such as fear or eagerness. The former conveyed via taut, contract muscles of the abdomen, chest, throat, and shoulders. The latter expressed via relaxed, easeful states in the same places. I take into account the nonverbal moods expressed, such as the settled, calm, and spacious state of attention, which expresses acceptance and confidence, or the jumpy and cramped state of mind associated with anxiety and vulnerability. Finally, I consider whether my jaw is tight or relaxed, as well as the micromuscles around my eyes and forehead, which so often signal recognizable emotional concerns. Only then do I make any attempt to figure out what's best via the mind's narrative capabilities. The practice just described may take all of 30 seconds or as long as 20 minutes, depending on how much time is available to respond. Yet no matter how short the practice, I can promise the reader, after years of firsthand experience, that taking into account one's breath, gut feelings, and moods invariably provides access to greater experience and wisdom. When we listen to all the body tries to communicate, rather than turning a deaf ear, we encounter new sources of guidance. So the body's talking. Mindfulness allows us to listen. And we don't have to get caught up in the monkey on the elephant's back, screaming which way to go, because the elephant, nonverbal, unconscious mind, makes a lot more decisions than we realize. In fact, one of the subliminal parts of this unconscious mind is the default mode network. And this, neuroscientists find, is one of the areas most impacted by meditation. So when we practice, even though it's nonverbal, we are rewiring the way the brain works. The neurons that fire together, wire together. We'll talk about that a little more later, but right now, spend some time, listen to the body.